Hey everybody! In today's video, I'm going to show you yet another way to get a faux patina look on your cards. I have this beautiful embossing folder that works so well for this technique. And I've cut this into two pieces, one with the embossed side and one with the debossed side. And we're just going to see how different the same process looks on these two pieces that I ran through my die cutting machine. Now, over the years, I've done faux patina techniques various different ways. I think the first time I did it was with a tutorial on split coats. And what you do is with the actual embossing folder itself, you ink it up, and that puts some color into the flatter parts of the design. So I will link you to that tutorial as well. That is a great way to do it because it gives you a base layer of color. And that was in the era before blending brushes, obviously. So it was a great way to transfer color with an embossing folder. But this way you don't have to clean your embossing folder after you use it. I'm just using some dye inks and blending brushes and applying, I think I'm going to end up doing 3 or 4 colors over both of these designs. And you'll actually, I think, kind of be surprised how different these two will look from each other. Obviously, the ink adheres to the cardstock in a different way on the embossed side than it does on the debossed side, but they're both really beautiful, and I think you will really like the look. So in addition to the brown, I'm going to add blue, and then I'm also going to add a green. So the idea here is that you want this to look like patinaed copper, so copper that has aged or been exposed to the elements. And it gets that beautiful complementary green on top of it, sort of like a Statue of Liberty look, and I just love it. So here I'm going in with the green. Now it really looks like the Statue of Liberty. And I will go over these several times to add different colors back in if I feel like it needs it. But the idea is don't think about it too hard. You want the color to be irregular on here, you know, little spots of brown, little spots of blue, little spots of green. And that will give it a more authentic patina look. And then of course we'll add a little bit of sparkle. So I think that my ink pad is completely dry. So I'm going to switch to the original blue that I used, and then I will have to re-ink my ink pad. But I wanted to add a little bit more blue in here. I think this adds interest to the patina, and also you'll get that contrast with that warm brown that I used for a complementary. And then, like I said, we'll add the sparkle. But see how different on the right with the embossed side? See how the embossed pieces grab that color? Whereas on the left, it's an all over sort of smoother application of color all the way across the design, and there isn't anything to really snag that ink and make it stand out. So to me, it enhances the texture of this beautiful 3D embossing folder. So for my last step, I will add back in a little bit of brown. This adds to the feeling that the gold that I will end up using adds. It gives that base color of copper and just makes it look aged in general. My preference is for a very warm brown for this application and not really a rust color like you would think of for copper. I think this looks more natural. But these really look like old school tin tiles, and I love that. So I am using my grid paper for my brand new teal Misty, and look, the teal is on the grid paper as well. So that's kind of exciting. Now I'm using the embossing ink to just very roughly and not regularly apply some ink around the embossed panel. I don't want it to be all over. I want it to be in just different places all around it. And adhere sort of in an irregular pattern. If you want to remove some, just use a paintbrush if you feel like you got too much on there. Again, don't think about it too much. Leave it just sort of here and there. Now on the debossed one, I'm just going to run the ink pad just parallel to the flat surface instead of just trying to catch the highlights like I was doing on the other one, and then adding selectively a little bit of gold powder here and there. The entire thing will be covered with embossing ink, so just choose where you would like the actual powder to be. So I will dump that off. I'm just enthralled with this teal grid paper. I don't have any idea why that is so exciting to me, but it was so fun to get it and see that it was a different color than what I'm used to. So now I will just do the magical embossing portion of the program that we all love and wait for that to turn a nice shiny gold. I think that for every variety of patina technique that I've done, I think I've always finished it with embossing. I just think it adds so much to have that gold on there. If you didn't want to emboss, or someone was sleeping and you didn't want to run your heat gun, you could also use a wax like the Hero Pearls. You could use the Hero Wax. You could just rub your finger with any of these waxes across the top of the surface and add the same thing. There's also a really nice gold ink from Honeybee Stamps that you could just brush the entire thing with direct to paper with your ink pad, and you would get this almost the same look. I just love the embossing. Embossing is universally loved. So let me show you what these look like up close. Very fun, shiny, textured, beautiful color peeking through. And then it's just so different on the emboss side than it is on the deboss side. Just two really unique and fun treatments with the same embossing folder. Now, if you want to, you can actually add color after the embossing. So on the left, I felt like this really needed a little bit more of that blue. So I went in with that. And I'm adding a little bit of green just to intensify that color. That'll help you create more contrast with the gold embossing. Just a little bit darker tone. I felt like it needed a darker, deeper tone there than it had. It was looking a little pale. And sometimes the only time that you can see that is after you're finished with all the steps. So just make it how you like it. It's completely up to you. Add a little bit more of the brown, the warm copper color. And then if you want to, you will have some dye ink kind of setting up on top of a non-porous surface, meaning the embossing. So you will want to just take a cloth or a paper towel and clean that off. And look how beautiful that is. Really looks like an old school piece of metal or tile. And you can use your embossing folder two different ways. So here are the finished cards that I made with this technique. On the left, the emboss. On the right, the deboss. All the supplies are listed in the description below. Head over to my blog for more information, and thanks so much for watching.